All right, y'all. We're on function notation as a quick review for y'all. It's been a little while since we've covered it. The function notation looks a lot like this. You got this f of x equals 2x plus 3, and then you have g of x, which is x squared plus x minus 3. Function notation is basically just a bunch of substitution. And what the question is asking here is, what is f of 2? Well, because it says f here, we are going to use the function f of x. So I'm going to write that right above my function f of 2 just to show how the substitution is going to work. So we have f of x equals 2x plus 3. And then f of 2 means to replace all those x's with 2.
Don't forget your parentheses.
Never forget them. I actually like to replace all my x's, like take them away first and replace them with parentheses. So I'm going to have 2 parentheses and then plus 3. And then inside your parentheses is going to be a 2. And then we can do our order of operations to simplify from here. As you guys just saw in the last problem, we're going to do our, there is a parentheses here. Nothing to do inside that though. There's no exponents, but we do have multiplication. 2 times 2 is 4. And then you have your plus 3, which is 4 plus 3 is 7. You can also take this right here. I know this one's actually pretty simple to do in our heads and by hand. However, you could take this over to Google if you want to for a calculator. 2 times 2 plus 3. Just open up Google and then type that in. Just as you saw, 2 times 2 plus 3. If you hit enter, you're going to get an answer there.
Right in the search? That's amazing. How'd you do that, Mr. Nelson? Are you some kind of wizard?
No. Anyway, so you guys can always use those the Google calculator for that. Let's take a look at another problem.
Okay. So
in this one, we have f of x equals 2x plus 3 and g of x equals x squared plus x minus 3 again. But I've changed it up just a little bit on the question. And it says right here f of 5. So we are going to take f of x again. And I'm going to write it right above it so we can see what we need to substitute. F of x is 2x plus 3. And again, we are substituting, so I'm going to remove the x first by putting parentheses around it. So 2 times parentheses plus 3. And
that's
right
brilliant.
Here, our 5 is going to go right inside a parenthesis.
2 it's times like 5 magic.
Is 10, and plus 3 would give us 13.
That's my lucky number.
Mr. Craig.
So I would write f of 5 equals 13 because that would be the correct answer.
You probably want to do that. Thank you, Mr. Craig. Right, f of 5 equals, you can write the whole relationship that f of 5 is 13. That shows us our input and our output. Our input is 5 and our output is 13.
Because you're not in a relationship unless you admit to it.
Gosh. All right, for our last one, same 2 functions above, f of x and g of x have not changed. However, the question has. I got g of 5, and so we're not going to use the function f this time because it's asking for the function g. So we're going to use this function right here. I'm going to go ahead and write that right above it. So g of x.
Oh, g.
X squared plus x minus 3. And again, we're going to be substituting, so we are going to remove our x's and replace it with that 5. First thing is to remove it, though. We're going to remove both of these x's. Have parentheses.
2 x's.
Squared.
Mr. Nelson,
plus
what does your wife think about that?
Oh, Mr. Craig. Once we have removed it, though, we are now going to insert the 5. We're going to replace those x's with 5. Now, this is where the math might get a little bit more tedious. You should be able to do it. However, we know that you might want to double check it or whatever. And you can take all this and plug it into Google, just like we showed you. I see 5 squared. I'm going to head on over there right now.
Show us that magic again, because that was a miracle. You went into the search engine and you just typed it right there?
Yeah. So we got 5.
This newfangled stuff.
To the power of 2 plus 5. And then I believe it was minus 3, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
You notice I'm still putting everything in parentheses. I'll go ahead and double check that real quick, make sure I've typed it in right. But I've got my parentheses still there for the substitution. So 5 squared plus 5 minus 3. And checking my work right there, it's what it looks like. So my answer is going to be 27.
Magic.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Craig, what should I write here? Over here on the left?
I'm in a relationship, so I'm going to write G of 5. She equals 27.
Oh, yeah, that's 27.
She sure is pretty.
All right, guys, and that's the review for our function notation. If you have any questions, send them our way.